I split 200 players into 4 different continents to see how they innovated, prospered, and advanced. Each team would have 1 week to make the best civilization possible, and then they would be scored on how successful the civilization actually was. Then after the 1 week, all hell would break loose and teams would be forced to fight to the death in a giant death match. The 4 teams included red, blue, green, and yellow, each inhabiting a different continent, while Africa and Australia were serving different purposes. Will the teams successfully build a functioning civilization, or will they delve into anarchy and despair? This video was inspired by Sipover and Magic Gum. Also, join Discord's link in the description to win cash prizes and participate in events like these in the future. Players spawned in for the first time in this brand new world. Hip hip hooray. Guess what the first thing they did was?
First thing they built is a dick. Am I surprised? No.
Break a tree? Mine dirt? Anything remotely useful? No. Off start, Asia and Europe wanted to test their luck speedrunning and hoped to become the next dream. However, the both of them got beaten by this absolute Chad of a man, who was able to get a sub 4 end run without even going to the nether. Man's just absolutely crazy. And no, he's not hacking, alright guys? He just has a good gaming chair. Eventually though, both Asia and Europe were successful in reaching the end. Then it was a mad fight over who got to steal and kill the one and only dragon and dragon egg. And of course, both teams had the genius of idea of, hey, let's just blow each other up. It became a ferocious game of beat the egg. And there was a lot of bed bombs in there. I guess they really didn't get the gist that sleeping in the end was a bad idea. Eventually, Europe came to their senses and left, so Asia got to keep the dragon egg, which would be super useful at the end of the game. Now, while Europe and Asia were duking it out, I'm sure you're wondering what the hell North America and South America were doing. Glad you asked. North America had created a gun shop in Canada. They couldn't quite figure out where Texas was, so they just built it in Canada and called it good. They're just absolute geniuses. In South America, created an underground, only half shady business. Again, are you surprised? The Americas just did not care in the slightest about progression or getting to the nether and end, and were just obsessed with whatever it was they were doing. Somehow, on day 1, the different continents had actually created governments in waves of organization. I know, it's shocking. The first government was Asia, and Asia said, hey, all 6 of us, the most skilled players in this group, get to vote on important decisions. And everyone else, they're just kind of there and don't really have, you know, rights. And North America was like, damn, that's a really good idea, guys. Hey, guys, let's copy them and call it our own. So they did exactly that. Then South America elected a leader to be a dictator. Oops. Never mind, that leader got overthrown. They are now leaderless once more. And Europe, well, I don't really know what Europe was doing. They were pretty angry that they lost the dragon egg to Asia, so they were just busy doing something with chickens. You know what? I respect that. Each team knew that in order to win, they would need to score well in 5 different categories. The categories included wealth, how much stuff you have, technology, how advanced your farms were, building, how nice your buildings looked, government and structure, how well organized you are, and lastly, war. Who doesn't love a good old war? With this knowledge, North America decided to do absolutely nothing related to those 5 prompts and created a religion. Good on you. What religion do you ask? Well, they worshipped a diamond block and called it the Diamond Shrine. And they stored it behind this impenetrable glass box. No one ever gonna break through that and steal it. And then someone broke through that and stole it. How did they break through it, you might ask? Well, it wasn't me, and the North Americans refused to believe it was one of their own kind, so they decided to blame it on a sheep, and everyone was down for it. So, as punishment for the sheep stealing the diamond, they decided to burn the sheep by the stake. Of course, it ended up being a super bad idea, as it set the trees on fire and ended up burning their base down. So the sheep actually did destroy North America's base. Then, feeling that loss, the North Americans decided to manifest their destiny some more and go conquer the rest of North America and build up a new base. They then met with South America and created an alliance. And by that, I mean they collectively said, screw you to all non-Americans. So that's exactly what they did. They went to the end of the nether and began to colonize that and just continuously blew up Europe and Asia for funsies. Again, are you surprised? It's America. Meanwhile, South Americans said screw tyrants and broke up into different
We
factions.
have infiltrated another area to be more stealthy.
Because we got greed.
They then scattered across South America, and this one dude said, let's go start in the bottom of the area. And then everyone kind of like agreed with him, and they just all moved to the south of South America, and created a new area. They then collectively agreed to expand their underground base and install some new helping hands to get the production booming to the quality they wanted to get it to. They also figured out the genius idea of trees. Trees above ground? No. Screw that. Someone might see it. Let's move it all underground. What about photosynthesis? Who gives a crap, they said. They didn't believe in it, so it didn't exist. And it ended up working out. Now, across the big body of blue water, Asia decided to use advanced tunneling mechanisms to find more diamonds and riches easier. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. They just used X-ray. And then, poof, 1/8 of Asia decided to leave the server forever and never come back. Although they didn't really have much choice in the matter. Meanwhile, Europe got really angry at everyone and just tried to kill everything in sight, even their own teammates. They just really didn't like everyone, I guess. They then decided to take a break and just wanted to become more dominant in the workers' district and get up villagers as they were slacking in that area. Of course, they couldn't figure out how villagers bred, how babies work in Minecraft, so they weren't able to get a villager breeder working for quite some time. And then Europe decided to finally set up a government system. Explain to us how it works. And this government system is possibly the best I have ever seen. Quite simply, what it is whoever talks the loudest and can shut people up the fastest is leader.
The main way of getting things done is I tell people to do things.
It works like a charm. They get so much stuff done. One dude just yells at everyone else to get things done, and it happens. It's amazing. Then Europe and Asia were like, hey, these Americans are making a lot of progress. Maybe we should, stop blowing each other up. And they both kind of agreed. Eventually, people finally came to realize, hey, maybe we should just collectively agree to not blow each other up. And mostly everyone agreed. Well, except for these guys. But they ended up being exiled to Australia. I mean, where else were they gonna go? North America was already full. Europe had experienced a lot of griefing and had to send out a lot of the members to Australia to join the Exiled faction. They then became quite sad for a while, as most of the members had left to Australia. But hey, they finally got their villager breeder working now, so now they have babies. That's crazy. Meanwhile, while Europe was busy making babies, Asia finally started using their brains and built some giant killing machines. They need to kill green mobs, or creepers, in order to get gunpowder to have rockets and mass amounts of TNT. They also started working on building up a gold farm. The reason they decided to build up a gold farm was to get golden apples in order to survive on D-Day, and just gold, because gold is incredibly nice. Who doesn't want gold? They then decided to practice their PvP on the most deadly animals of all time. Sheeps. And they almost lost quite a few times. It was a really close battle. Meanwhile, America grew insecure about their height. And what do we got here? We are currently closed, so fuck off. Alright, that seems like the people on the server. And decided to make the tallest base ever. Again, they didn't learn the lesson and built it out of wood. Just like the first base. But hey, at least this time, they used 3 different colors of wood. Why? No clue. But they did it. And they also created a second religion. This time over squid ink. They decided that the diamond block was too valuable and people would try to steal it, but no one would ever try to steal squid ink. Who does that? They then decided to make a giant hole in the ground in the middle of your base. And if you ask why, honestly, the reason I think is they were trying to dig into China. There was no slime chunk or any valuable reason to dig down, so that's the only thing I can come up with. That's the only reasonable explanation. They also built huge walls. Again, are you surprised? They then decided to let South America in to further increase trade and build relations, as South America had some resources that North America did not have easy access to. Then South America decided to expand their underground business. Look at how far you've come, South America. I'm proud of you. They also built the first Enderman farm on the server, but it got blown up shortly after, as Europe did not like it, so they decided to blow it up. Classic Europe. After blowing up South America's farm, Europe decided to make a better one, and this time they actually shared with everyone, which is quite shocking, actually. I guess they're finally starting to mature, which is crazy. Now over halfway done with the event, the teams agreed that getting stacked with armor was behind them, and they now needed to work on developing their civilization as much as possible based off the points. Because let's be real here, if there wasn't a point system, everyone would just go caveman and brain each other to death repeatedly. I also decided to encourage the monkeys to use redstones in farms by offering a reward for the most advanced farms. You either hate redstone or you love it. There was almost no in between. And seeing this offer, Europe began construction on a creeper farm and a gas farm, in addition to a more secretive project. If you're wondering why the gas farm, it was for end crystals. End crystals are incredibly useful and it would be the main way of PvP on D-Day. Europe was like, crap, we were 100% not winning the war. So, in classic Europe fashion, they decided to build TNT dupers and work on a world leader to destroy the map and my server, instead of trying to actually win. Around 1/3 to half of the active players on Europe moved to Exiled, and Europe kinda wanted them back. So they made an alliance to kill the Americans before they killed each other. Meanwhile, in the south of the South Americans began to work on a project, dogs. Not only were they a reliable food source, but they actually hit people and were super useful in PvP. Why should you fight when your dogs can do it for you? Of course, you know, the dogs are gonna get blown to smithereens by the end crystals and TNT, but it's the thought that counts. The leader of this dog and food army was Some Guys, but because they were allied with North America, he was able to share some of his dogs so North America could also get a dog army. This dog army for North America was led by Tobuscus Jr. The North Americans had finally stopped selling guns, and instead they switched to selling magical concoctions and potions that boosted your happiness. They were also working on building up quite a large city, and most of the builds were actually super nice, except of this atrocity. I hate this thing with a burning passion in my heart. Besides this atrocity though, they also reformed the original Diamond Shrine religion. This time they actually built a church for it. Also, you know the base up in the sky that had 3 different wood types? Guess what? It burned down. Are we surprised? No, not really. It's only like the 3rd wood base they've built and have burned down. So guess what they made the church out of? Wood. And glass and stone. They're improving a little bit. They also decided to kill the Wither a few times for funsies, I guess. I hope you're happy, America. Meanwhile, Asia was just chilling. They had worked on getting raids going and now had so many totems. They also decided to work on building. Except this time, they actually had a concise plan and didn't build atrocities like America. Instead, they built this spectacular dojo. Like, I truly really like how it looks. Fully equipped with samurai swords, aquariums, netherite hose. It was by far the best single build on the server. Most of the players in Asia had a different time zone, and for D-Day, not as many players would be able to get on as the other teams. So they decided to optimize their points everywhere but at D-Day, and this included getting good builds. And lastly, the Exiled. They had the fewest players by far. However, they had a plan. That plan was the 16th night. Guess what their plan was? Lag out the entire dang server so no one can play, and then the admins will have to call it a draw. So, they built the lag machine, and someone turned it on. Take a guess what happened to the player who built the lag machine. Option 1, he won the event. Option 2, he got kicked and banned for breaking the rules. Option 3, he got smited by God. Or option 4, we just turned the lag machine off. If you guessed option 1, then ding 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 ding, you won the dummy award. Of course I didn't let the lag machine win. Who do you think I am? Instead, I turned off the lag machine, smited the player quite a lot, and then kicked them. So if you guessed option 1, then wow. Just wow, you guessed the only wrong answer. Nearing the end of the 1-week period, teams began to scramble to get as much done as possible to advance their civilizations and prepare for Doomsday. North America began by gathering all the wealth they had and put it in one basement, like the group of hoarders they were. They also decided that 1 iron farm was not nearly enough for them, so they made 4 more iron farms. Like, who needs that much iron? In addition, they also began to work on the genius idea for war. A stasis chamber. This idea has been around for a while, but what it is you throw an enderpearl into water, and someone hits a trapdoor and you get teleported back instantly. So when you are alone in combat or when you run out of totems, someone can flip a trapdoor and you'll be TP'd back to safeties where you can restock and resupply. However, this would only work in the beginning of D-Day, as eventually the border would close in on Africa, and the stasis chamber would be outside the world border, forcing the North Americans to move and engage more closely. Because we allowed Crystal PvP, Red Team began to practice in their free time so they would not get clapped by the more experienced members of Crystal PvP on the other teams. Down in the south, the Southern Americans were just too busy worshipping their god, to care in the slightest about war. They knew they could just vent away from trouble whenever they needed it. However, they did eventually come to the realization they enjoyed living, unlike some other members on the server who had over 200 plus deaths. So the raid farm it was for them. They also continued to grow their dog army in preparation for D-Day. However, no team had decided to use TNT dupers, even though they were allowed. Two reasons for this is either they were too stupid to figure out how to get it to work, or they just were mature enough to not want to blow up my server. I think the first option is a lot more likely than the second. Now over in Europe, they began building a bunker where they could store all their goods. What Europe was not aware of, however, was there was an imposter among them. Every plan they had tried to create so far had failed, as KPN, one of the most active Europe members, was actually a spy from South America. With their battle plans ruined for D-Day, they no longer trusted anyone, and built bunkers to store their wealth away from the prying eyes of KPN and other suspicious players on their team. Now as for the Exiled were very few in numbers. However, they made up for extensive skill in Crystal PvP and the gear they had brought with them. Rubrik and Pickle were the two best Crystal PvPers on the server, and even though they did not have the numbers, they knew how to blow shit up. And being the definition of anarchy, they went into the Nether to steal from all other gold farms and gas farms, and then proceeded to blow up all the farms they could find. In total, they ended up blowing up North America's gold farm 3 times. And let me tell you, North America was quite angry with the Exiled for blowing up their gold farm 3 times, and vowed to kill them first. However, the Exiles were not threatened, as they had worked on gathering a bunch of end crystals and respawn anchors, as they would prove incredibly useful in Explosion PvP. And with the final day of the event coming to an end, it was time for D-Day and judging to figure out who had built the best civilization. Starting on D-Day, each knew what was at stake and prepared for the worst. Each team sent out scouts to investigate and figure out where the enemy teams were. However, most of the scouts ended up dying. Are you really surprised? Because the Americas had united, they outnumbered everyone else by a large margin, and were surprisingly coordinated, considering this is what their VC sounded like 24/7.
One's dead.
Everyone listen. Everyone listen. Everyone listen.
So far, they had no need to use the stasis chamber, but the North American, called the Jesus Toucher, was ready and waiting to TP people back if needed. As the border started to close, each team moved towards Africa, with the first two teams getting there being the Exiled and Asia. And it was a massacre. Although Asia had skilled PvPers, it was nothing like the Australians. They dug into the sand and blew up Asia one by one. So if you did not know, end crystals are an incredibly dangerous item, but they will basically insta-shot you if they hit your feet. However, if they hit any part of your body, you will generally be fine. Still damaged, but hey, at least you're still alive, unlike Jeff over there. Using the tactic to dig under the other teams, Exiled wiped out a majority of Asia until the Americans showed up, and everyone using their common senses said, hey, let's get the F out of here.
So what the fuck? North America's here. North America's here. Maybe just run.
After extensive PvP, each team had lost a large portion of the members, including the Exiled. However, America still outnumbered every other team combined. Seeing the American superpower approaching, Europe and Exiled met up and worked together on ruthlessly picking out Americans one by one. The Exiled did not want to fight the entirety of America head on, so they tried to pick out loners and kill them before the teams could get there. However, this occasionally worked in America's favor, because they were all decoys and there were people hiding very close by ready to ambush the lone attacker. After seeing all of his team die to this method, _NotYou was the last person from Asia alive, and he flew up to camp above the center of the map, seeing no other option. Eventually, they got Rubrik, the best PvPer, stuck in the hole, while they firing squatted him with everything they had. Like, oh my god, bro. However, he was able to escape, although very mentally damaged, not so much physically. Then, misfortune struck. After being trapped in a hole, Rubrik and Pickle started spamming crystals, ended up killing some critical members of America. However, in the process, Rubrik killed one of his only surviving teammates, Pickle. This was devastating, as now it was Rubrik and 2 other people versus the entire America. But once again, Rubrik was able to escape this hole just because he's good. The border began to close down, and with nowhere left to run, the teams were forced to duke it out. One by one, teams fell, with Europe being the first out, as all but KPN, the South American spy, were dead. Then followed Asia, who after surviving for such a long time, fell to Rubrik's end crystals. Why did they not team up? I have no clue. They're not really coordinated. Fun fact. And eventually, Rubrik himself had fallen to the American superpower, although he did not go without a fight. In the total process of D-Day, he had ended up killing over 10 to 15 members of America and Asia, which is more than anyone else was able to achieve. However, with the threat out of the way, America shortly dispatched of KPN, the last European, and began fighting between each other. And it was super intense. They were around even numbers, but in the end it became a 3v1 versus Blue. And even though the last South American alive had a lot of totems, it didn't matter, and Tobuscus Jr. ended up killing the last member of Blue.
GG's, everybody.
Now that Red had won the war, it was time for the final points. Asia received a total of 8.5 points, putting them in dead last. The Exiled received 9 points, putting them in 4th. In South America, although close to winning the war, only got 9.5 points, slightly beating the Exile. Then Europe had 15.5 points, with the majority of them coming from wealth and government. It was the least chaotic VC by far. And in first, with the most active player count, North America had the best pre-day civilization, coming in with 17 points, and with the war, they received a total of 22 points, destroying the competition. Through trials and tribute, North America had built the best civilization. Maybe next time, you will get to make a difference. Either way, subscribe, like, and join Discord, link in description.